Are you a small business owner or entrepreneur who works 50 hours a week on your business according to research done by the Alternative Board? With 68% of your day spent on tackling day-to-day operational problems rather than 31% of the time, the study suggests that entrepreneurs and business owners spend working on strategically growing their business. If you answered yes, then Pete Mohr is someone you want to make time in your schedule to consult with. Mohr believes that small business is the backbone to any economy, and he runs a company called Simplifying Entrepreneurship. His goal is to make sure that entrepreneurs and business owners can get more of their time back to live a more fulfilling life while also running a profitable business. So he took some time out of his schedule this week to join me in conversation about business diversification and succeeding in today's business climate. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So Pete, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to talk to you this morning all about small business. Great to see you this morning, and thank you so very much for being here.
Yeah, awesome. Looking forward to it.
And Pete, you tell me that your passion in life is making sure that small businesses are viable. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about it, because I know we share a mutual understanding and passion that small businesses are the backbone of any economy.
Yeah, such an important piece, and I look at this. I've been a small business owner pretty much all my life, Kevin, and still run a couple of different businesses and what have you. But from my business, one of the businesses it's called Simplifying Entrepreneurship, and I help coach and work with entrepreneurs through their frustrations and all of the different things to help them create clarity and confidence and momentum within their businesses as a business coach. And the reason I do that is, like you said, it's that passion around helping businesses survive and thrive and really do well. Because business owners typically, when we talked before we hopped on air here about sort of small town community and all that sort of stuff, but business owners are typically the people that give back to build the wing on the new hospital, that help put a new roof on the church, that run the foundations like the Lions Club and Kiwanis Club and all the things that help donate back to the community in all sorts of foundational community things. So my feeling is that they employ the people in the community, they work towards betterment of the community, and they're leaders in their community. And my feeling is that if I can help them reduce some frustration and overwhelm within their business and help them create a better turnkey business that's going to allow them more time and freedom, that they can get back their time, they're probably going to give back more to their community. So in some small way, I feel that all the different people that I'm working with all over, well, right now in the States and Canada, I'm touching their community in some small way by helping them create more time freedom that they can then give back to their community. So that's my little sort of legacy thing that I'm looking at doing and saying, hey, listen, if I can help this owner create time freedom so that they're going to give back more to their communities, then that community is going to be helped and served by that business owner, and it's going to have a rippling effect for their community. And it's really just a really cool sort of philosophy around the fact that small entrepreneurs, small businesses are really the backbones of their community. So that's why I do what I do.
Absolutely. And Pete, you talked about earlier, you talked about helping businesses be more innovative and creative. And, I live my life through the prism that inclusion is the gateway to independence. And I don't know if you knew this about me, Pete, but I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy. It simply means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally, and I'm also passionate about helping uh, individuals with disabilities find and maintain employment. And I think small businesses are a good way of doing that. So, my next question is, how do you think we can create an environment for individuals with disabilities to succeed as entrepreneurs, or give small businesses the tools they need to hire folks with disabilities?
Well, Kevin, it really depends on what the disabilities are, because some disabilities really aren't very big disabilities, depending on what sort of job framework it aligns with, and can they do the work that you need done remotely, let's say. And the beauty of what's happened here in the last year and a half, Kevin, is that people are used to working remotely. They're used to having these conversations on Zoom. They've set up frameworks within their businesses that allow them to outsource partners to do some of the things that are crucial. And it doesn't really matter whether or not you have a disability. It just matters if they get the job done. And from that perspective, I love the fact that it really doesn't matter whether you have a disability or not. If you're a good marketer, what does that matter if you have a disability? So from a personal perspective, if I'm looking to outsource a marketing, let's just say, to an outsourced partner, the beauty of that is that somebody that has a disability who's a really good marketer doesn't need maybe to travel into work anymore, or some of those other frustrations that they had have been eliminated through things like we're chatting on right now, which is Zoom. So it's such a wonderful, freeing thing that both entrepreneurs are used to this now, because that was a frustration for a lot. We've been using Zoom for about 5 years, but a lot of people hadn't been using a lot of these digital connecting tools up until COVID. So now that that's happened, anybody who's used to that can now work from home, do all those different things, and even get better at what they do and their offering. So yeah, it's really alleviated a lot of the physical constraints that some people have with disabilities, because it really doesn't matter anymore from that perspective. It's just matter the job. It comes back to, can you do the job, and let's bring you on board.
Absolutely. Pete, I used to work in inclusive employment, and I also always told employers sometimes you have to fit the job to the person instead of fitting the person to the job, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it works the opposite way.
Yeah.
So, and I know that, Pete, I know that you believe that everyone who works for you should be able to recite your business mission. And as an old journalism school graduate, Pete, I've always, when I read that about you, I went back to being concise wins the day, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at everything, our job as leaders, Kevin, is to ensure and communicate all of the things that we do to deliver our promise to our client. And if we don't do that, then we're not living up to our promise. And everybody within the organization needs to know what that promise is. I'll flip it back to my shoe store. So we have a couple of shoe stores. and they're called Shootopia. So at Shootopia, basically we have it, it's literally in one of our stores behind the cash register, but everybody understands what the goal of Shootopia is. And that is to help people look great and feel fantastic. It's down to those words. It's look great and feel fantastic. So that if somebody comes in and they're like, okay, and I've actually narrowed it down to 9 letters, and I'll give you those 9 letters too. And everybody understands what these are. So the 9 letters are, when they come in, understanding what they truly want. And if they're trying something on and they're looking in the mirror and they're saying, I look pretty awesome. Like these look great. So we've delivered the look great part, right? It's the when they say ooh, like they're looking in the mirror and they're going, ooh, those 3 letters, OOH. Ooh, I look great. And then they're closing their eyes and they're going, ah, AAH. Ah, I feel those feel awesome. I could wear these all day long. So if we've delivered ooh and ah, those 6 letters, then we have developed an aha moment, which is AAH. And the aha moment is, I finally found the perfect pair that actually looks great and feels fantastic. Because most people think that stuff that looks good doesn't feel good, and stuff that feels good doesn't look good. So when we deliver that, then we've got a happy customer. And when they walk out the door and they leave Shootopia and they look back up at the Shootopia sign, they're saying, you know what? That was a great experience, and Shootopia is my favorite footwear store. So that's the power of communicating things like that, breaking it down into look great and feel fantastic, or breaking it down into ooh, ah, and aha, so that it's easy to communicate from a leadership perspective, and driving that down through your marketing messages and all the other things that go along with your business, so that you're not only your team knows what it is, but all your clients know what it is too. And from that perspective, I mean, that's such a crucial piece of developing that.
Absolutely. And Pete, I ask all of the entrepreneurs and people I have on the show this question because I'm always fascinated to get the answer to how do we achieve more business diversification, equity, and inclusion for all people. So tell me, what's your definition of business diversification?
Well, I think, there's a lot of different ways of looking at that depending on how you frame it. I mean, within your business, you can diversify. And within your business, I mean, if we're talking about our team, diversification within our team and our client base, then basically it's how you align your products and your process. One of the things I talk about is the 4 Ps, which is your products, your process, your people, and your profit. But when you look at that, it's how, from a leadership perspective, are you aligning the inclusion and the diversity within your product mix, within your service mix, within your people, both your ideal client and your team, right? Because diversity and inclusion involves both of those. And it also includes your suppliers, which is that third piece of the people. So I break down people into 3 different things: your ideal client, your ideal team member, and your ideal supplier mix. And so from those perspective, how are you working through those? What are the processes that you have set up within your system and that your team and you're communicating to make sure that all of those things are in alignment with what your culture is for your business? And that's such a big piece, right? You're always thinking about culture, and people don't really give enough due diligence and thought, I think, to the culture of their business. We get mired down into sort of the everyday putting out the fires and doing all this other stuff and just rolling through this. But how are you hiring? How are you firing your clients, your team, and your suppliers in order to make sure that all these things align with the culture of your business? And how are you communicating that not only internally, but externally as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And Peter, I'm also curious to ask you about the impact of COVID-19 on small businesses. And how do you
Yeah.
think we can ensure that small businesses have a chance for a more robust and full recovery as we emerge from the virus?
Well, I think, COVID-19 hasn't hasn't hurt everyone. In fact, it's been a boom for some. Some people have done incredibly well because of the things that COVID-19 has brought, and they're experiencing best ever years and what have you. Not only because maybe their product mix was just right for the time, but because they've allowed themselves setting up their processes and setting up the different things. And I can tell you, at Shootopia, with those businesses that we own, we were closed about 20 weeks here in Ontario. Different blocks of time through the last year and a half. That was a lot of time closed, a lot of time that we couldn't do business other than online. So what did we do? Well, when you're struck with problems, you need to find a way around. And those are the things that I coach to with Simplifying Entrepreneurship, and we lead, working through that sort of stuff. What did we do? Well, we set in place some different things where we grew our online business. We set up some things on the backside of things. We changed our point of sale system. We aligned some other things while we were closed. We made some better systems within our processes to alleviate some of the frustrations. We had some extra time, so we didn't just sit and watch Netflix. We actually took that time and used it to better our business. And coming out of that, we've been open again since May now. And so we've got June, July, August, September, October, and November, as we're recording this at the end of November. We've actually had, Kevin, 6 of 7 of those months were our best ever months. And why is that? That's because we set up some systems, we set up some process, we aligned the right people while we were closed during those times in order to do even better afterwards. So what have you been doing? And I'm asking that of our listeners here today. What have you been doing to through those times? I mean, the past is the past, but what are you continuing to do to improve those processes, to improve your product mix, to improve your people, all 3 of those different things in order to have your best ever? Because we never have the perfect process, but we're always trying to perfect our processes in order to make it even better. And that's the key point here, is that we always have to be under sort of a continuous, never-ending improvement of our businesses and all of those different things around them, so that when something happens like this, we are able to make the shift, we're able to make the changes. And that's the beauty of being in small business, is that we can actually make those changes and shifts literally overnight if we need to. And we have the power to do that. The bigger organizations, some of those big behemoths, have a harder time making those sort of stop on a dime and do an about face switch. And we have the power to do that. We just have to actually act upon it. And that's a big piece that, some entrepreneurs have a hard time, and they're procrastinating some of the things they need to do, but they just need to go ahead and do them.
Yeah, absolutely. Pete, this podcast started because of COVID. I was about to start a job, and then because of the pandemic, my contract got suspended. So I had the opportunity to rebrand and reinvigorate myself. And like you, I
Nice.
said that there was only so much Netflix I could watch in a day, right? So I wanted to do something to expand and strengthen the resume. And you are the 350th podcast for the endeavor this morning, and we've been recording since May of last year. So there you go.
Awesome. That is fantastic. And what a success story, right? And it's because you actually took the action. I call it the IPA. You had the idea, and then you postulated about it and thought about it and how you could make it better. And then you took the action to actually make things happen. And so when you IPA all of these different things, you ideate about them, you postulate, you kind of think about it. How can I make this a little bit better? But the key piece is that last one, the A. How am I going to activate it, and how do I put it in place? And just get going with it so that you can actually change some things on the back end, as opposed to always sitting at that postulate, never moving to activate.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pete, I've been staring at the guitars behind you throughout the entire interview, so I'm assuming in some level you're musically inclined. So I'm curious to ask about your passions outside of the office too.
Yeah, yeah. So, one of the things that I work with entrepreneurs, obviously, is that we're trying to give them their time back, right? That's a big frustration. People are working 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week in their businesses, and they're feeling as though they don't have time to do other things. And for me, yes, music is a big passion of mine. And, I've played in a bluegrass band for many, many years and done some recordings, and you'll see a mandolin and a guitar in behind me here, and enjoy playing those, and enjoy being with my friends playing music in particular. And so that's something that I do my best to carve out time. I also, in fair weather, enjoy hopping on my bike and going for a ride. And, when the ski hills open, I started skiing again last year because I felt like it had been about 10 years since I had been skiing. And I'm like, you know what, I'd like to go back skiing again. So I started skiing again last year, and this year I'm going to continue that on. So what are the things that you want to do in your spare time? And I think that's a big thing with entrepreneurs. If we don't actually put a name on something, then we end up going back to work. And we never have a hard time finding work to do, but sometimes we have a hard time filling our leisure time. And that's an entrepreneurial problem. And it's one that's like, okay, well, let's name something that you're going to do in your leisure time. And that way you can schedule it into your schedule, just like you're scheduling your next podcast or your next appointment or whatever work commitments you have. Because if you don't schedule it, then work just ends up sort of taking that space. And that's not necessarily mentally healthy or physically healthy. And those are important pieces. We need to stay mentally healthy, ready to create and ready to do some of these things. And if you don't give yourself the opportunity to spend some time doing some things leisure, the things that you want to do and the things that bring you different mindset and different sort of framework around that, it's not helping your business either. So that's kind of a long story around the music, but just to put in frameworks of the fact that we need to actually book our leisure time sometime for people that, have a hard time knowing what to do when they actually have some time, as opposed to just going back to work.
Yeah, Pete, I've made a promise to myself. If it's not in my schedule, I don't commit to doing it, right?
There you go. I mean,
So,
it's time management, right? We all need to do it. As Dean Jackson once said, and I use this line a lot, but I believe it to be true. There are 24 hours in a day. You can't buy more and you can't use less. So how are you crafting your time for, both, your individual appointments within the day, your week, your quarter, your year, and your life, in order to get what you want out of your business? Because as business owners, that's what we want. We want to create a better life, but we need to actually know what that better life looks like, and then have our businesses help drive that home, so that our business is actually part of creating and delivering back to us what that better life actually is.
yeah, and you've talked extensively this morning about giving business owners their time back. So I'm curious to ask you, what's the first key to sort of creating an environment where you're creating the expectation to live a more balanced life, but also run a successful and profitable business?
Well, I'm not a huge believer in a balanced time frame for the most part. I mean, I think you do need to have balance, and I like the idea that you used a balanced life. I think you can have a balanced life, but sometimes, you know, there are seasons in your business typically, and those seasons, sometimes you just have to work more because it's the busy season, right? And if for us in the footwear business, our busy seasons are sort of May, June, and again October, sort of September, October. And from that perspective, I know that I'm going to be needed more. And so I have to give up some of the other things, the other areas of my life, in order to be available more for that business at that time. And those other months that I I'm not as busy, I can focus on some of the other areas. And that's where I'm getting this balance side of things, right? But to have a balance in every single day, it's pretty hard to do. But I do, like you do, use a time structure and a calendar in order to give me as much balance as I can. But I think as business owners, we need to understand that it's never fully balanced, and we are going to be needed more at certain times of the business. And I think the big thing here is that if you're feeling you're always busy, you're always too busy with your business, and you're working literally that 50, 60, 70 hours in your business every single week, then what happens is you don't have the right systems and processes in your business, and you'll never have balance. So that's where you have to come back and understand the idea around setting up the proper systems. And one of my coaches along the way, Joel Weldon, introduced me to this acronym for the word system, which I love. It's called a system saves you stress, time, energy, and money. So system saves you stress, time, energy, and money. And when you set up the systems or the processes in your business, that's exactly what it does. So what you need to do if you're working 70 hours a week every single week is your systems are wrong. Your processes are wrong. You haven't allowed accountabilities for other people to take those off your plate. And that's when there are no seasons in your business. The only season is full on. And if that's the case, then you as the leader need to set yourself up with some systems that are going to alleviate some of those things. And it's okay to have busy seasons. It's not okay to be busy every single day.
Mohr has also found some success by implementing and adopting the Business Made Simple motto, made famous by Donald Miller. He also knows a thing or two about creating a story brand. So I asked him to reflect upon the impact the Business Made Simple motto and Miller has had on his personal and business journey.
Yeah. So I am a business. So Donald Miller wrote a book called Business Made Simple, and he's written Story Brand as well. So a couple of years ago, I became a Business Made Simple certified coach. And from that perspective, a lot of the coaching that I do, we use some of the frameworks around Business Made Simple and my business is called Simplifying Entrepreneurship. So I believe in making your business more simple, obviously. And so we use the story brand framework. We use the different philosophies in there, along with all the stuff that I've created over the years. So I look at the Business Made Simple side of things or story brand side of things as sort of modules, depending on where my clients need help. And if we need to plug that module in, we plug that module in, or whatever the case is. But big believer for sure in a lot of there. And what I'll do here too, Kevin, for any of you interested listeners, is that on my website at simplifyingentrepreneurship.com, if you go in the upper right hand corner and click the button take the assessment, you can take a Business Made Simple assessment there. And basically it takes about 12-15 minutes to do for your business, but what it'll give you back is a 45 to 60 page PDF, depending on how you answer the questions, of what you're doing really, really well in your business and what you might need to work on for the next year or the next quarter or any of those sort of things. Gives you some guiding principles along what you need to do to make your business better. And whether you use a coach like me or whether you're doing it on your own or using some other tools, it just brings it out in the forefront as to some of the areas you might want to think about and some of the areas you're really doing well. It's good to get a pat on the back too, right? For those areas that we're doing well in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pete, I'm always happy to connect with another Canadian, and I'm
Yeah.
always passionate to ask fellow Canadians. For you, what's the best part about being Canadian and living in Canada there, buddy?
Well, I'm a proud Canadian, and my ancestry goes back to Philemon Wright, who founded the Ottawa area. So my family's been in Canada for many, many years. And it's interesting, Kevin, people will say, well, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Canada. And they say, well, like, yeah, but where's your family from? And I'm like, Canada. because most people want to know the lineage back, and it's like, okay, Mohr, if you go back, it's German, Australian, or Austrian, but from that perspective, I mean, we've been here since the 1700s, so I'm a proud Canadian. I don't go back to any of the previous histories very much. We look at being here and what we've done here as a family, and from that perspective, I love being Canadian. I love our freedoms. I love our system. I love the people. I love, just everything around doing business, and how we have a country here in Canada that people look up to and want to be. There's so many people that would love to live in Canada. And I just look at it as one of those countries that I couldn't be more proud to be a Canadian citizen. And from that perspective, do business, have my family here, and live here. And it's just a real pleasure.
And Pete, yeah, always proud to be a Canadian. And Pete, I'm channeling my mother when I ask you this next question because she always tells me I have to have more color and more sort of taking chances in my fashion wardrobe, Pete. So I've been looking at your shirt during our conversation, and I'm wondering where does your fashion sense come from, bud? Because that's an interesting shirt, so I'm just curious.
Thank you very much for that. And like I said, I'm a retailer, so from that perspective, it's one of those things. I used to have businesses, service businesses too, and I used to be a painter, and I used to literally, Kevin, every day put on my white painter's pants and my golf shirt that I wore out painting, and I was covered in white every day. So when we gave up that business, we sold that business, but when we sold up that business several years ago, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna dress differently. And I've always been a believer that people that that when we talked about being in a band, and when I was performing, I always believed in getting up and looking your best. And if you're going to perform, always want to be looking your best, because that gives people an initial sort of idea of what to expect. And so from that perspective, I always like to have something a little different, something that calls out a little bit more, but always really look as though I'm ready to roll. I'm professional. I'm, all of those different things. And it depends on your audience, Kevin. I mean, I don't wear this sort of stuff every day. I kick around in jogging pants and stuff too around the house. But when it's time to be what we call on stage in this business, whether on stage is a client meeting or on stage is on camera as we're doing now on Zoom. But when I'm on stage, I want to put out a certain presence, and that's who I am, right? And I think that's just part of it. It's that idea of making your bed every morning, right? When you get up, and people that start their day off with a certain thing, it's just like, you make your bed, you get feeling good about stuff, and you're ready to start your day. And I do the same sort of thing when I'm doing a client meeting or whatever the case is. I want to present properly, and I think it's an important piece of how I run my business and what I do every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pete, my final question for you this morning is, when they write the final chapter of your book of life, how do you think you want to be remembered?
Well, there's a few things I'd like to be remembered for. Most importantly, it's to be a good family person. And I want to be known as somebody that gave their all to their family, and to be involved in their lives and do all that stuff. I mean, my wife and I had when we got married, we decided to have 3 kids, and they're a very important piece to me. And my parents are still alive. They're a very important piece to me. So when I look at my buckets of life, which I have on sort of a system called the one-page planner that we've developed. When I look at my buckets of life, the relationships that I have are the most important thing to me, and the most important thing that I can do. So that's why I'm trying to free up my time, because I want to spend the time with the people that I love, right, as much as I can. So that's the big piece. The second piece would be I want to be remembered as a community builder, somebody that helped their community. And that's, we talked a little bit earlier on about this idea of why do I want to help entrepreneurs? I want to help entrepreneurs because when I can help them, they're going to help their community. And that's an important piece. Like, what can I do to help the community that I live in and other communities around there? So that's a very important piece to me too, is to be remembered sort of as a family man who cared and who wanted nothing but the best for their family and did everything to help that. And also the very same thing for my community through my business and through simplifying entrepreneurship and how I coach and with whom I coach, which are successful leaders and business owners.
Yeah, and fabulous, Pete. And tell me, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way to do that, buddy?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate you having me on here today. And we had a great conversation. And if anybody wants to sort of further this, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but just go to Simplifying Entrepreneurship. I know that's a long one, but Simplifying Entrepreneurship, Google that and you'll come up with simplifyingentrepreneurship.com. And you'll find out more about me there. I'm on LinkedIn at Pete Mohr, Mohr. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all of those sort of social connections, or you can just email me at pete@mohr.coach, COACH.
Fantastic. Well, Pete, I really enjoyed our conversation and time together about entrepreneurship, small business, and ways to build sustainable success. Your time, energy, and efforts on my behalf are most appreciated, and I really want to thank you for joining me this morning, buddy.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, Kevin, and great to have a chat with a fellow Canadian.